Hello and welcome to Upper Pen. My name is Dakota, and today I get to talk to Alex Picard, narrator of Jacqueline Benson's The Raiders of the Arcana series and the London Charismatics. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
You've done quite a few narrations, right?
Yeah, I have a little over 100 under my belt.
That's a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess that's a lot of books. Yeah. Comparatively to some, not many, but like, yeah, it's a lot.
But these books in particular, right? The Raiders of the Arcana are so fun. Do you enjoy working on them?
These are among my favorites to narrate, partially because, well, she's just really good at what she does. She's really good at what she does. I love, but there's like when you're working with really well written material, and then you've got these just beautifully designed like sort of three-dimensional characters with these huge arcs, and all of this great character development, and then like adventure, a little steam, like clean steam, which is fun. And like it's got like the whole package, you know? And I also learn a ton when I'm reading her books. Like I just learn a lot about history and indigenous peoples, and I mean the list goes on. I've just learned so much from doing her books too. So it's just they're among my favorites. Her characters just sit in this little place in my heart.
Before we get too far, do you want to let people know if they haven't heard of what the Raiders of Arcana is, what it's a little bit about?
Sure, this is how I sell this book. This is what I tell everybody. It is like if the movie The Mummy met Indiana Jones, but Indiana Jones was a suffragette.
And
Then that's kind of
respectful.
right. Yeah, right. And it also like has elements of the Jungle Cruise. It's just this like swashbuckling, smart, fun adventure. And the female characters are just bold and brave and vulnerable and just brilliant and really funny. Like I love funny women and they are funny.
They're also like take no crap too, which
Oh,
is
not at all.
impressive for a what, they're in the 1800s.
Yes. And they
So,
take zero crap. Yeah. Yeah.
so the first book, Empire of Shadows, they go to British Honduras. Well, Ellie does.
Yes.
Um, was that difficult to narrate British Honduras?
It was so every time Jackie writes a book, I ask for a heads up as to where we're going. Because I don't have every accent in my arsenal. I have a bunch, but I don't have all of them. And so it helps me to kind of get a head start as much I can. So for most of these, I've had to hire a dialect coach, partly because I just don't want to screw it up. And sometimes just to remind me of an accent and sometimes to just learn a brand new one. So the the British Honduras accents were tricky at first, but the thing that's kind of beautiful is that, and whether she intends to or not, and I'm going to bet that she intends to, she writes her characters in the rhythm in which these accents exist. So it started to get easier as I was like, oh, okay, well that's, the hotel manager's wife and she has this rhythm, right? And like and all that sort of thing, and so was it hard? Yes. Did it get easier? Yes. Was it easy? No.
So when I was listening to it, I was so impressed because you actually do other languages too in this.
Yeah,
And I was like, well, it sounds like you kind of speak these languages already. Is that the case?
it's a great compliment, but that is not the case. I do not. I have a little bit of Portuguese, and that is the end of my list. Maybe the French that I grabbed in eighth grade, but the rest, no. So a lot of that sometimes what Jackie's really good at this too. Jacqueline is really good at this. She will help me find people who are native speakers. And so, I'll do my research and I'll figure out pronunciations, but then what I want really is the flow. I want to know what it sounds like when a person who speaks this language speaks it, because that's one situation where the reader doesn't have to be like, I need to hear every single word. They need the feel.
Yeah.
They just need the feel and then it will be translated through the text, right? So um, she will find somebody or I will find somebody that can record those lines for me. And that way I can kind of listen to the flow and then I can put it in the rhythm and the character and kind of send it out that way. We even found in it, like for Tomb of the Sun King, we found somebody who, spoke Egyptian Arabic. It was kind of amazing. And then oddly enough, the proofer for that book, because, all of them get proofed and like to catch my mistakes and whatever, he studied Arabic for 7 years. And so, which was random, and he loved the book, like absolutely loved it. Like it keeps asking his editor for like, he's like, can you just send me the next one? I'll proof the next one. But he was able to kind of help me with the pickups, anything that was just a little bit off or whatever, because there's so many sounds that are not in the English language at all. So that was incredibly helpful. So it takes a village.
My husband and I grew up in the same area, but his best friend is from Egypt and
Oh,
speaks
wow.
Arabic, right? So he's like this Egyptian American kid. And I remember going to see one of the I don't remember what movie it was. It was like X-Men or something, and they have this chanting in Arabic at the beginning, and he's like laughing so hard. And he's like, they're just saying, wake up or something dumb. But with
Yeah.
this, I feel like it's
Oh, no.
actually like legitimate.
It's very legitimate. There is nothing Jacqueline Benson does better than research. Everything is legitimate. There is not a fact in here. Like, I have no doubt that everything in here is accurate. Languages, historical facts, all of that stuff. Yeah.
Does that make it so for you having to go through all of these extra people, does that make it take longer to narrate these stories then?
I do give more time for these, but I give more time for her books for two reasons. One is it is a lot of code switching on accents, right? So
Mhm.
the narrative is mostly British, but some, general American, depending on whose POV. And then there are, a number of other accents, right? There's the, one bad guy that sort of has a little bit of Cockney in there, and then there's the other one that's Scottish, and then there's, the Mexican Spanish and the Cajun and the like all of that. So I do leave a little time for that because sometimes I code switch wrong and I'm like, oh, wrong accent. I have to kind of go back. So I do build in time for that, but I also build in time because I just I love these characters so much. And so I build in a little extra time for those moments where I'm like, I'm just gonna go back and do that again because I just want it so badly to be perfect, And I want to hit that moment where Adam says that thing to Ellie that just makes everything wonderful. Like I just want to get that, like where he validates her strength and her wits and all of that. I just don't want to miss those moments. So I do take a little longer with these. Like sometimes I'll book, depending on how long the book is, like 3 weeks at least,
Mhm.
and and sometimes a little bit longer if I just want to go easy on myself because it's a lot.
Well, these books are pretty thick too. I don't know if people realize it's what, 18 hours for the first one?
Yeah, I don't think I have narrated a book of hers that has been shorter than maybe 14 is the shortest. I think they're dense, they're big. Which I kind of love about them. They're epic. They're really epic, big adventures, and there's time for character development. It doesn't feel rushed or anything like that. And they even develop over the series. It's just so good. So good.
I remember getting to kind of the climax of the first one, and you still have quite a few, like there's 3 hours left. And I was like, what can happen?
Yeah, what could possibly happen? But then valuable stuff happens. It's not
Yes.
just like, oh, I guess we're done and now it's just filler till the end. It's like, oh no, we need this. We need to wrap up what happened there. We need to talk about what they just went through. We need to like, and I love that when they've been through something that's traumatic and difficult, she takes time for them to have real human difficult conversations with friends and people they love that are hard conversations to have, that they have to sort of process all of the stuff that they've been through, which is one of my favorite things that she does, because these are easily connected to conversations where you're like, so we have to talk about this super hard thing. And like, I don't know how to start it, but like, let's get into it, and then, always there's that last bit where you're sent off in a new direction and the new adventure is revealed.
It does feel very unhurried, but in a very intentional way, you know? Um,
I agree.
so in the second book, we meet Connie. Um,
She's my spirit animal. I love her.
my favorite thing in that whole book is that Neil calls her a danger gnome.
Danger gnome. Isn't that the best thing ever? She is a danger gnome. It's a great description of her.
I mean, if danger gnomes, like, I'm thinking of a lawn garden pulling out knives now.
Right? Wouldn't that be amazing? Yeah,
Oh.
yeah, because she has all these knives tucked into her like corset and all these other like nobody carries more knives than Constance.
So in the second one, we have Connie, and then we also have the Bedouin women that we meet. And I felt like there were so many more women in this book. Was that more exciting than narrating all men almost?
I know the first one was a lot of men. It was a lot. I know. It was exciting because she was like it's not just more women, right? So
Yeah.
Connie is very different from Ellie, but they complement each other really beautifully. But Connie just like goes, and Ellie's like, maybe we should think about this. And then she goes, nah, I'm with you. And then she chases after. So there is this great dynamic that they have. And when you put two female main characters together that have that great dynamic, that just supports the whole thing, right? But the Bedouin women, I found that it's not just more women, it's more women in a culture that is beautifully written as well, right? So we're not just learning about who these women are, but we're learning about what they believe in, what they think is right, what they're fighting for. And that for me was my favorite piece of it. Um, I'm trying names are escaping me at the moment. The who's in the why can't I think of his name? Saeed's wife.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, oh my God, it gotta be in there somewhere. I swear I read it several times. Saeed's wife is particularly just gorgeous. And I can't think of her name right now either, although I know it starts with a Z. But
Zainab.
thank you.
I think it's Zainab.
I knew it was there somewhere. It is. It is. You're right. Um, she just is, God, she's gorgeous. And the way she very gently educates her husband and forces him to sort of open his mind into the risks that she takes and the the scope of the stuff that she fights for was just beautiful. So it's not just like, ooh, wee, more women. It was like more like, wow, so much to learn about all of these different kinds of women, which was just, and they all made such a great, crazy little mix. It was so much fun.
I really wanted a side story with the old lady who had all the bombs.
Oh my God, so badly though. So badly. She was hysterical. She said like what three things during the course of the book, and I would giggle every time she came up.
Well, because Const or Ellie was always like, "What do you got?" Though, like, well, what's in there?
Isn't that bad? She wants those explosives so badly. And it's funny because that's another thing I love about these books is that the smallest characters are big, right? Like, I mean, I would a whole series, little side stories where she just goes and blows things up around Egypt would be amazing, right? But that's the case for like even, the guy that rents the boat or, or in her first series, there's this woman that runs the house that Lily lives in, and maybe five lines in the whole series. I love that woman. She's so beautifully drawn, and in Tomb of the, no, what was it? is in Empire of Shadows. There's the woman that runs the hotel is out doing laundry with her daughter, and it's a teenage daughter doing laundry, and she has one line, and she is every teenage daughter that's ever done laundry, and it's just beautiful. It's just so she's so full a character, and that's it. That's all you see of her ever, you know?
I think Jacqueline has a similar ability to describe people as like Tolkien, right? You might not spend 10 pages on someone, but I feel like they're real.
Oh,
Um,
very real. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
which I don't think everybody really cares to invest this skill in. But it seems like Jacqueline is all about those side characters.
It's very much so. We have a lot, like often I will I'll text her while I'm recording and just be like, are you trying to kill me with this scene? Or like, I'm fine, I'm not crying. Or like, can we have side book of this person or this person? Like I'm always asking for like, what about this? Could we have more of this? And all that kind of stuff. And I love those exchanges because it gives me a chance to just gush about little tiny things, little moments, that I don't really get to spend time with anybody else. So that's kind of a gift that we know each other well enough to do that.
How did you get picked up as her narrator?
So I was lucky, lucky, lucky. Um, Jacqueline and I have known each other for a long time, actually. I think, God, I want to say the first time we met was maybe 2008-ish, somewhere in there. Um, we have my college buddies are friends with Jacqueline. So we met through friends and we had sort of seen each other at parties and whatever. And I was not an audiobook narrator when I met her. I was a theater professor and an actor. And fast forward a bunch of years later in her book, now I can't remember the original name of it. The original version of Empire Shadows came out.
Yeah.
All right. And so I read that and I was like, oh, this is really good. And so I had started to narrate then. And so I just reached out to her on Instagram and I was like, hey, if you ever want to bring this to audio, just keep me posted. And she said, I actually don't own the rights to the audio on this one, so I can't. And I was like, no worries, but good to see you. I'm here if you need anything. And then when I think it was like maybe a year later, if not a little bit longer, I just randomly got a message from her one day that said, hey, I'm doing this new series and I just really love your tone and I love how you sound and I would love you to do this series. And I was like, yes, please. And I fell in love with those characters so deeply, so deeply. Both of my daughters have read the entire series and they are obsessed,
Mhm.
like completely obsessed to the point where Jacqueline wrote this like little epilogue and she was just going to put it on audio by herself. And I was like, I'll do those 40 pages for you if you will go to lunch with my kid. And so
Oh,
we met up and my daughter got to like ask her about being an author and about the books and she got all this swag from Jacqueline and all these things. It was just magical. And so I'm very grateful for it. And then Empire of Shadows came out um before she had decided to do any audio. So I read it just as a reader. And as I was reading it, I remember I looked up at my husband and I was like, if she doesn't ask me to narrate this, I'm going to be so upset. And like I would say maybe it was like a month later I got this email and it was like, hey, any thoughts about doing this series? And I was like, yes, 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 yes. Like, I'm in. Because I could already hear them in my head, even reading just as a reader, I could hear them. I knew what they were all going to sound like, and I could hear the narrative. And I just count myself very lucky that she continues to use me. I love working on her books.
I imagine there's quite a difference between reading a book as a narrator and reading it as a reader.
Oh gosh.
Um, what are the main differences, I suppose, that you're looking for when you're reading it as a
Right.
narrator?
Well, when I'm reading as a narrator, if I have to, like, if I'm prepping the book, like if I'm prepping Jacqueline's books, I am not just reading, I am reading for character clues. I am reading for any speaker tags. I'm reading for pronunciations. I'm highlighting things. I am taking notes. I am figuring out how many voices, what kind of voices they need to be. Like there's just so many parts and pieces that I'm paying attention to. And when I'm just reading a book, like the first time I read The Empire of Shadows, I was just reading it and I could hear them, but I was just enjoying it. I just let it wash over me. I didn't need to research it at the time. I didn't need to do any of that work. And I try to do a lot of reading for pleasure outside of work because I don't always get to pick what I want to do for work. Um, and I make it a point to just really try to turn off that part of my brain and just enjoy the story and just let it all wash over me, right? And just allow myself to get lost in it. And then when I record the book, that's a whole nother different kind of reading because now it's like, okay, I did the work and that work is done. And I know how to pronounce all these things and I know how to do all these things. And then it's my opportunity to get lost in it, right? To get caught up in the feelings and the emotion and to bring that to that like one ear that's
Okay.
listening to it. So it's sort of three different kinds of reading.
Do you record these in parts then, or do you go like, I'll do 10 pages today and then whatever?
Yeah, I break it down. Sometimes I'll break it down by hours and sometimes I'll break it down by pages, sometimes both, but I'll look at how long it is and be like, okay, so I can feasibly, with the amount of accents there are, get this much done in a day. And then I look at my calendar and my schedule and where my kids need to be and all the other crap I got to do, and then I make adjustments accordingly. But I try to hit like, I don't, I mean, there are a lot of narrators out there that will do 2 finished hours a day, sometimes 3 finished hours a day. It just feels exhausting to me. And I like having my life.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they do too, because I'm sure they're much faster than I am. But I like to take some time. So I'll usually do like an hour and a half a day, which still can take like half a day, more than half a day, depending on the book. And with these books, that takes me a day. An hour and a half finished is a full day.
Well, I mean, I can't imagine going through and reading like Said's lines, especially the Arabic ones, and getting it right every time, you know?
Oh, that does not happen. And so yeah, so I'm constantly punching in to fix,
Yeah.
to fix moments, to fix my mistakes. Um, the moment, where Said is like staff in hand and just like ancient Arabic, I was like, okay. And I was actually in this there's this Google Meet that a bunch of narrators go on that we can just like sort of body double, co-work a little bit, right? We all have our cameras on, but our sound is off. And that just like it's accountability, right? You're in the room, so I'm going to come to the room. We're going to narrate for a while and then I'm going to leave, right? And I remember I was in the room and his stuff was coming up, and I just put in the chat, I'm going to turn off the camera because I have to summon the power of God in ancient Arabic, and I don't want you to watch that. And they were all like, understood. So, and I was literally in here with my arms up, like, and I had to do that, I think it might have been about 10 times. That Arabic was hard. It was hard. Plus, I'm trying to get the emotion and what Saeed is going through in that moment and all of that stuff. So that one took a little while. But then once I was done, it was like, whew, okay, I can keep moving. So yeah, you have to slow down for some parts for sure.
That's, I mean, that's really cool, but I'm also really fascinated that there's an entire Zoom chat for accountability for narrators. Like,
Yeah.
this is what I would need if I were to ever work from home.
Oh, it's really great. And sometimes it's like one room, one link. There's a Facebook chat for it, and or a page for it. And it's the same link every day. Anybody can open it and it stays open until somebody, until everybody's gone from it, right? And some people are in there late at night because there's different time zones and all of that stuff. But there's like a group of regulars that show up. It's like, and so that's really nice because it starts to be like, you're narrating and you see somebody pop up and you're like, hey, and they're like, hey, and then everybody just gets back to work. But it's also great because sometimes you just have a question. Like, hey, this letter is from the killer at the end of the book, but they don't know it's the killer yet. what kind of voice would you do if you don't want to give it away? Like, would you go more this or more that? And like, so you can get that advice in real time, and that's hugely helpful as well. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Sometimes I just do it with one of my other friends, Jen Lee, who is a beautiful narrator and a dear friend of mine. She and I will just hop on a little Google Meet by ourselves and we'll catch up a little bit, like, water bubbler talk, and then and then we get to work. And sometimes we'll support each other and do sprints together, like, okay, we're going to narrate for this long, and then we're going to take a break. And then we're going to narrate for this long, and then we're going to take a break. Just kind of helps us, well, remember to take breaks, but keeps us accountable, keeps us moving through the day and not get distracted. It's easier to not get distracted when somebody is sitting right there going, you have to get this done. You know?
Do you ever kind of use them as like can you just, I think of like performing a play or something, and you want somebody to kind of be there to know the lines that are coming up so you can get
Yeah.
pacing right. Do you ever do that kind of stuff?
No, no, we don't. That's just us on our own trying to figure that out. I have though, and I think a lot of narrators do. Certainly, like if an audition comes in, I will record it and send it to a friend for thoughts and feedback. And
Okay.
say, here's the book, here's what it's about, here's what I'm shooting for. What do you think? And then they'll give some feedback. I'll re-record it, I'll send it in. We'll keep each other posted. Like, we'll certainly do that. Um, Rarely you maybe have somebody sit in on Zoom if you're working with like an engineer or a director. Certainly you get that,
Oh
right? The
yeah.
director's listening for pace. The engineer is like, hey, take that back. Let's just like fix that a little bit. I'm working with an engineer right now on a fantasy book, and it's been magical. Um, I get a lot more done when I work with an engineer. I think most people do. But yeah, the rest of that, figuring out all that pacing and how that all works, that's just you and your alone time.
I always feel I always kind of imagine these moments where characters will cut other characters off as being really awkward in the booth, because how do you talk over yourself?
I know, yeah, it's tricky. And sometimes I have certainly had moments where like it just works, right? I cut myself off with one, I pump in with the other, and I'm like, yeah. But then there are other times where I'm like, that was terrible. And so I'll go back to like where the cutoff is, and I'll try to get in like closer, and kind of interrupt that way. You can't do a true interruption, but you can come
Right.
pretty close,
Okay.
you know. Just takes a little finagling.
What are some of your favorite parts about narrating for Jacqueline, I guess?
Oh, I have such a list. But I think at the top of the list is these characters are really quite phenomenal. They're brave and they're brilliant and they're flawed and they're vulnerable. And she she also has this really there's a beautiful scene. I think it's in Tomb of the Sun King, where Adam and his friend Neil, who is Ellie's brother, have to have a hard conversation.
Yeah.
And it's heartbreaking because these two men are being vulnerably honest with one another. They're talking about their feelings. That's just rare and really beautiful. So, like, number one on that list is just the character development is so good. I hold these characters very close to my heart. I will miss them when they are gone. I miss the London charismatics all the time. My youngest daughter just finished reading that series, so I got to kind of relive it with her a little bit, which was fun. Will my children listen to the audiobooks? No. But
Oh,
they don't want to listen to mom work. I just want to read it on the page, mom. So that doesn't happen. But I think that's number one. Number two is that her writing is just so good. It paints a beautiful picture. And it's so easy to bring that picture to life. Because just the sprawling landscapes that are described, the moments of awkwardness or tension that are described, like all of that is just so beautifully done. So I think those are my top two, but I'm sure I could go on.
I think one of my favorite parts of the Tomb of the Sun King is that nobody really forgives Neil for the thing that he does.
Yep.
Like they can kind of understand how he got there, but like that was a betrayal, sir.
Yes, sir, it was. And it was I love that part too. And I love I love why he made the decision to do what he did. And I love how he grows and learns through really screwing up and understands
Yeah.
finally how badly he screwed up, and what he put everybody through. That's just some beautiful character development right there. Um, but I do love that it wasn't an easy forgive because it
Yeah.
isn't always. Life is not like that. Somebody will say, well, we're okay, but this is going to take me some time,
Yeah.
and that, I mean, yeah, that happens in life all the time, but that does not often happen in books. And it was really kind of a beautiful moment. And he has to ask for forgiveness from several people.
Oh gosh, yeah.
It's not just an apology to the group or like, as long as I've apologized to my sister, I'll be fine, right? Like it's a lot of people he has to have individual difficult conversations with to come to terms with what he did.
But you also keep up that tension pretty well anytime someone's speaking to him, usually at the beginning of a conversation when they are remembering what he's done, but
Right.
they all easily get caught up in whatever they're doing. But Saeed in particular, his voice is always so stiff when he's talking to Neil.
Oh, yeah. And it's what I loved about that too is that there's such a shift in how Saeed talks to Neil.
Yeah.
How he talks to him in the beginning of the book when we first meet those two, which is like the funniest scene when he's trying to pronounce the huh, right? It's just cracked me. I laughed so hard doing that. It took me a little bit. But they have this beautiful, like lighthearted, easygoing relationship. Saeed is dry, but there's affection there, there's a kinship, there's collegiality, there's like all of that kind of stuff. And then after Neil does what he does, yeah, there's tension, there's hurt. He's just like, I think he feels betrayed. He feels like, there's all these things that he thought that Neil understood about him, but Neil clearly did not, and you have to you hang on to that, especially with Neil being Egyptian and not having as many rights or the freedom to be the kind of archaeologist that he wants to be.
Yeah,
Neil,
Saeed.
yeah, sorry, and Neil just gets to be whatever he wants,
Yeah.
because he can, you know. So yeah, I loved keeping that tension because I thought it was really important. It's a bad thing. Yeah, I think it was important that Saeed feel that way so that then we could hear like the little shift at the end when they just sort of make an agreement to move forward together.
Yeah.
You know?
But you embody that pretty well in Saeed's dialogue. Like it just comes through really well that he's very uncomfortable.
Yeah. I mean, it's uncomfortable. They have to, like, despite what Neil did,
Yeah.
they all have to keep doing what they're doing and they have to work together. They don't have a choice, you know? So it's like when you're stuck with that colleague you don't like, and you're like, no, I gotta keep going. And there's like this natural tension that sits there, and then you're fine with everybody else in the group. It's like, that group project at school.
Awkward.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
Um, have you seen any of the Arrow of Fortune manuscripts?
I have not, but it is coming.
Ah,
I'm very excited. I am really excited. And part of what I love about these books too is that, I mean, the readers just are eating these books up. And so I hear from a lot of readers on Instagram who will just kind of show up, either they've like reviewed it or read it and loved it or whatever it was, and they'll like message me or they'll tag me in something. And well, there's one of them that I mean, I think I consider her a friend. I don't know. Maybe she thinks I'm nuts, but like, like we chat all the time and it's just like, when is it coming? And I'm like, I don't know, but not soon enough. And so there's this like lovely connection about that. But I talked to Jacqueline the other day. She posted on Instagram the word count. And I was like, oh, but it's about the same as the last one, actually. Yeah, about 15. It'll probably be about 15 hours. Um, and she asked me if I would like sort of like the rough copy sooner rather than later. And I said, absolutely. Like the earlier I can get into these characters and whatever dialects and link, because we're going to India. I was
yes.
like, oh, help me. The earlier I get that, the better. So I should be able to read that sometime in July, maybe August, and I can't wait. And that'll be a different kind of read too. I'll just read it so that I can get an idea because that's not going to be the final. So I'm
Yeah.
not going to prep that one, but I am looking forward to it. She also made a post on Instagram not that long ago. She didn't say what it was for. She just it was a picture of her hand holding a stack of books, and she said, just doing a little research. All the books were about Korea and ancient Korea, and I'm private messaged her. I went, Jackie, what are you trying? And she just said, evil chuckle. I was like, hmm. So yeah, it's gonna be a ride.
Because she's not stopping at a trilogy, right?
No, I think, and I may be speaking out of turn here, but as I remember, I think she said maybe four, no, five books. I think she said five at least.
Yeah.
For more, but like, yeah, I think at least five. Yeah.
Well, I can't. So in the meantime, I'm starting to listen to the London Charismatics. So like
Oh,
I'm
good.
super stoked. Like I'm still on your voice, I guess.
Yeah, that's still me. Yeah, it's funny when I listen, like I was listening to a clip not too long ago because my youngest kid who just finished reading it wanted to know what a voice sounded like, and I couldn't remember. So I listened to like a little clip that I had, and I was like, God, I sound so different. Like the growth that I've had in just who I am as a narrator and how I work, and like the growth is kind of nuts from the first series to the next. Not that the first series is badly done. I don't think it is.
No.
Jacqueline loved it, but it was funny because when I sent in the final files for the Empire of Shadows, she was like, "Woman, how? How did you get better?" Like it was really funny. It was very, nothing feels better than making her happy. So that was really kind of fabulous. But the London Charismatics, it's funny when I finished that series and she sent me this one, I was like, how could I possibly love characters more than these ones? And I don't love them more, but I love them equally. They're just, London Charismatics has like just, it's a little darker, it feels to me. It's a little, there's some deep stuff that's going on there. And these people, that one's like if the X-Men lived in Victorian London, right? So and what I especially love is that there are elements in the London Charismatics and the Raiders of the Arcana that they sort of exist in the same universe.
Ooh,
And
see?
as you read them, you start to figure out and you start to go, is that this? Like it's just this lovely little moment. I remember I was reading Tomb of the Sun King and I went, is this? And she was like, hee hee. So, which is also really interesting. I think there's a prequel story I cannot remember the name of, but it has Ellie and Constance, and they run into a young Strangford from London Charismatics. So that's kind of fun.
Okay. Well, now
Yep.
I'll have to keep extra like attention and question everyone.
Yep. Basically. Yeah. 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 But the London Charismatics, beautiful, beautiful books. Just beautiful. My youngest finished reading the last book in school, and she was like, "It was not cool. I'm not okay. I was crying." And I was like, "Sorry, kid. Like, I should have reminded you, like, not to finish it at school." But, you know, in middle school, bawling your eyes out is not something you want to be doing.
It's fine. It's fine. Everything is
It's
fine.
fine. It's fine. Yeah, it was funny. She said, "Please tell her I am not okay." I was like, "Understood."
I'm sure that's not the only message Jacqueline's gotten regarding.
No, I would imagine it's not. Yeah, she breaks hearts, and yeah, she's just so so good. I'm so glad you're listening to the London Charismatics. I loved that series so much. Those characters. Ugh,
Well, it's so different,
it is very different.
tonally, and
Yep.
I just love the like switch.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing. And I came to it on the reverse, So, I was used to Lily, who's this like pant wearing motorcycle rider, like in a time when she should not be doing that. And it was, the stuff that Lily's going through is, equally as hard as what Ellie's going through, but there is this emotional component that is really difficult that has to do with her family and where she's from and who she is and how she finds her worth. And that has a very different tone and feel from this is like so we kind of like there's sort of this mystery thriller dark element to the London Charismatics, and then there's this sort of like swashbuckling adventure, but also like deep feelings element to the Raiders of Arcana. But yeah, they're very different, but you can see there are elements that are very her, that go through both.
It seems like she's not afraid to dive into difficult conversations.
No, no, never. And
Yeah.
I love that. I love narrating difficult conversations. They are, I mean, other than funny ones, they are among my favorite kind of conversations because there's so much going on. There's so much that is unsaid in what is said, and the way a line can be read can kind of affect how hard that conversation is, and where they're at in that journey. It's just, those are juicy. They're just really good.
The in Tomb of the Sun King, when Adam is approaching Neil by the river,
Mm.
there's this kind of funny quip he makes about alligators, and I
Yeah.
feel like it could have been very, very funny,
Yeah.
but like the tension of the scene is very high, so it's kind of like a muted funny.
Yeah, it's like there might be alligators. Oh, okay. Like it's just quiet. But then I love that, like at the end of that difficult scene, Neil's like, "I'm coming!" Like I gotta get out of here. Is that a
Leave
crocodile?
me.
Like it's out of there. Yeah, yeah. So sometimes there's, I think the humor is so beautifully placed in her books too. The humor comes just when you need it, and sometimes I will really let that sing, and sometimes I'm like, we gotta just mute that one a little bit because what they're gonna get into
Is
is so much,
yeah.
that if we go too light, you're losing your listener. You're going to pull them into what you're doing. So it's like a gentle get ready.
Oh goodness.
Yeah.
Are you working on anything other than Jacqueline's work right now? Well, I guess you're not technically working on her work right now.
No, I'm not working on her stuff right now, but I'm excited to start. I'm wrapping up a 15-hour fantasy
Ooh.
from a big universe, which has been really fun. I tend to do a lot of mysteries, thrillers. I have a cozy series I'm working on right now, and um, the dark romance that with the Russian mafia that my pseudonym is currently working on. So, recording one book at a time, but I've got various stages of others in prep. But I've got it's a lovely range of stuff. So it's like I'll go literally from this cute, cozy, charming, cozy mystery to like so many dead bodies
Yeah.
with the Russian mafia and so many people doing so many things to each other. So like there's these really like that's a week, and you're like, whoo, it's like emotional whiplash sometimes. But I love that. I love the variety of it. I love that there's always something new. So yeah, I have a nice mix, but I think, beyond Jacqueline's stuff, a lot of like mysteries, thrillers and things like that. But every once in a while I just get thrown a curveball and I love those curveballs.
Is there anything that you really don't narrate?
Um, I don't do a ton of nonfiction. I have done it. I still do it, but it's they're, few and far between. Um, which is fine. And the ones I tend to get are super interesting, which I am grateful for. Um, uh, no, I don't think there really is. I don't, I will say no to anything that is overly religious. I don't have anything against that. It's just not something that I can ring true for. So I'm not the right fit for it. But other than that, I'll pretty much do whatever game. I love new things.
How old are your daughters? Do they know about this mafia romance?
Oh my God, they totally do. They will never read it. Well, maybe they will someday. They certainly won't listen to me do it, but they do because, some of the fun is that, I mean, my daughters are voracious readers. They just have always been, will always be. They love reading. And so, when I come up from the booth, my booth's in the basement. I'm in it now, obviously, but when I come up, for dinner or whatever, what were you working on today? How did it go? Like, and we'll start talking about characters, and I'll, tell them a line that I thought was so funny that I couldn't get through because it was so funny, or like, or whatever. We'll make jokes. So we made a lot of jokes about the Russian mafia, which was just super funny. It just makes for really fun conversations. And then when they hear something that they think is particularly fun, they'll dive into it and they'll read it. They won't listen to it, but they'll read it.
But you don't sound anything like your narrator self.
It is different. I think it is me. I tend to in person be a little more gregarious and open and boisterous, because the extrovert gets to come out. Um, but I am closer to that narrator voice in quiet conversations.
Okay.
There's just an element of that you're not seeing today, but but so I am a little closer to it at times, but there is a difference because there is a different sort of, I don't know, here you and I'm talking to you, you're one person, but there is still a larger audience. And there's something, even though there is a larger audience in audiobooks, I'm only talking to one person. And that's how I think of it, just one person that needs to hear this story. And then it sort of draws in everybody else, right? Everybody else gets to share in that, but the delivery has to be to one, because if I try to deliver to all these listeners and make everybody happy, it's just never going to happen, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it is a little different, but they still won't listen to me. They think it's weird.
Have you gotten any I don't want to say hate, but any pushback about being a narrator and a woman? I know a couple people have one woman in particular that I've talked to, she gets kind of a lot of hate. And I don't know if
Oh,
it's the
really?
community that she narrates for or
I mean, it can be really hit or miss. And I think it's harder. This is just my opinion.
yeah.
But I think it is a little harder to narrate in romance. That audience is demanding.
Mhm.
And those books tend to be about the male voices,
Yeah.
And so that is what the listeners are listening for. And so they tend to be a little bit more harsh, I guess, on the female voices. I haven't experienced a lot of that.
Good.
Luckily, I think I've just been in a different kind of book world, in terms of the stuff that I narrate. But I have had, I will occasionally get hate on my accent work, which is, I thank you for making such a pouty lip. But I'm okay with that. Like, I really am okay with that because you can't make everybody happy, right? And out of I went on NetGalley because I was trying to pull some quotes from readers for my new website that I'm working on. And so I was looking through, and I just couldn't help but laugh. There was a review that just went on and on about my accent work and how good it was and how it pulled them into the world. And then the next one was, I had to stop listening. Her accents are crap. She doesn't know what she's doing. They're messy. They're unclear. Like, does she know what a vowel change is? It was just vicious. And I could not help but laugh. Like, there's same book, same me, two utterly different responses to that kind of work. But I also think that if somebody is going after my accents, then they're not there for the same thing that the person gets caught up in the book is.
Yeah.
There are things that readers will just forgive, because they just love it. And I'm not saying that I actually am bad at accents. I think I do an okay job, but I think that like some readers are just letting that wash over and they just get into it and they're not listening for vowel changes. They're not listening to the accuracy of that. They're just letting that person be from where they are,
Yeah.
you know. I did have there was a little bit of a response because Jacqueline and I had to have a conversation about whether or not we were going to do a dual POV for Empire of Shadows. And we decided on one POV for a couple. I mean, it lends itself beautifully. Like
Yeah.
there are Ellie chapters and there are Adam chapters. It would have lent itself very beautifully to that. But then she knew at that time that in book two, we were going to have four POVs. And then that's four narrators.
Yeah.
And that's just, there's an expense there. There's a coordination there. It just gets increasingly more difficult. And so there were some people that did not love that it wasn't a dual POV. They weren't overly harsh about it. And I get it because if you listen to a lot of romance, you're expecting that. And dual POVs are much more um, popular now than they used to be. But there were some people that said, typically I prefer a dual POV, but she does a great job giving the difference in POVs, which I worked really hard on because it can be confusing,
Yeah.
you know? Especially in Tomb of the Sun King, you're going from an Ellie POV to an Adam to a Neil, who's a totally different kind of guy than Adam, and then Constant, she's just a different human being on the planet than everybody else. So it's, making sure that there's an attitude in that narration that matches that character so that I can bring the listener with me really clearly. Like they need to know moment one, like they hear the chapter title, they know where they're going, you know,
Yeah.
um, because otherwise you're pulling them from the book and that's not going to work either.
I will say dual POVs. What usually happens is I genuinely love both narrators, but because they are narrating the same people in these chapters, their characters sound vastly different.
Yeah.
And it like is jarring when it switches back and forth for me, and I just want one narrator.
I love that. And I think that's true. And it's funny because we work really hard to try to sound similar, but there's no way I could make that
Oh,
character sound the same as my co-narrator. We just don't have the same vocal cords. But I do love that about this series. Like four POVs, but Neil is the same in everyone. Ellie's the same in everyone. Constance is the same. Adam is the same. Saeed is the same. And that just, yeah, it allows for like a cohesiveness that keeps the listener, I think, really into it because they know exactly who they're hearing, you
mhm.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, not to say that dual POVs are bad. It's just
No, not at all. I love them too. I've certainly listened to some that I was like, oh my God, that was like outstanding work, but it is, yeah, it's different. This is, and I think too, I mean, especially with Tomb of the Sun King and that certainly with Empire Shadows too. There's just so many people, so many people, and there are so many characters in Tomb of the Sun King that are smaller characters but are consistently in the book.
Mhm.
That it's just easier to keep them all the same. There's just too many people to track. It's like a Chekhov play sometimes.
And none of them are ever going to come back.
Right. Yep.
Well, thank you so much for talking with me today. It's a very good conversation.
It's an absolute pleasure. Like somebody asked me to talk about Jacqueline's books. I am not going to say no. I'll talk all day.
I want to say, even on your blurb for your contact on your website, it says that or something
Yeah.
similar.
Yeah. I will talk all day. Like you want to talk? I love to talk. Let's talk. Yeah. I think it's on my contact reach out. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, no, this was lovely. Thank you for asking me, and I'm excited to listen to your conversation with Jacqueline.
Oh, I'm
That'll be really
so
fun.
excited to have both points of view.
Yeah,
Um,
I
so,
know. Someday get us both at the same time. That's a riot.
oh God, I wouldn't even know what to ask. You guys would just have to talk to each other, and I'd have to just sit back.
We did that once at we did a reading at not a reading, we did a book event at the local bookstore. And we were just in conversation for the audience and then Jacqueline signed books. It was really a lot of fun.
They didn't let you sign the books. Jeez.
Nobody was really asking.
I always feel weird because, like, I love the narrators just as much as I love the authors.
Yeah.
And,
I mean,
you
the narrator can make or break. So yeah, I get it. Although, oddly enough, a woman that I met at that book event and I read a little bit of Tomb of the Sun King at that event. I ended up later getting a 3-book fantasy, sort of like a romantasy series, and it ends up was the woman that was at that event.
oh, that was
Yeah,
a
it was really
perfect
kind of
little.
fun. It was. It was a perfect little like boop.
Well, thank you again so much for being here.
You, thanks for having me. This was a lot of fun.
I really hope everybody goes out there and checks out Raiders of the Arcana.
Yep.
And the London Charismatics is on YouTube right now. I think you can listen to it a little bit
Yeah,
for free. So,
yeah. I think it's on Spotify too. It's widely distributed, so you can pretty much find it everywhere. I also
yeah.
think it's in library apps. Oh,
So I do think people should go and listen to it, is what I'm saying.
100%. All of them. Just listen to all of them.
Well, thank you. And everybody out there, I hope you have a lovely, lovely night. I'll see you again next time. Bye.
Bye.